Do we need wholesale resignations at the top of the FCA and a complete restructuring of the organisation?
Well, I think the thing is, this report is founded upon the testimonies of 175 individual victims or whistleblowers about the state of the FCA. So this is not something that we take any great pleasure by, to put it mildly. But what we are waving a big red flag, saying either the FCA needs to be fundamentally reformed, or alternatively abolished and replaced with a much more sensible alternative if it can't be reformed from within. Now, we have tried our best to correspond and negotiate with the FCA, but in many ways they've been, I think, obstructive in many ways. They've also been quite defensive about the whole position. And I think when you get a report like this, the first thing you've got to do, as you say, is make sure you read it thoroughly. If you're on the receiving end of this, and then respond to it. They seem to have responded very defensively, and it's a great shame because we want to see fundamental reform of how consumers in the financial services industry are assisted when things go wrong. And we've got a whole series of scandals that we've uncovered and been negotiating with the FCA about, but yet nothing seems to happen to those poor victims.
Yeah, and something does happen to the whistleblowers, and it's not a positive thing that's happening to the whistleblowers as well. Do you want to address that one issue as well? Because if you are brave enough to call out financial malfeasance at a company, it is stunningly scary, I would imagine, for those individuals. The treatment of those whistleblowers by the FCA has been lacking at best.
Yes, indeed. And since we released the report, I've been receiving a whole series of other messages from whistleblowers who obviously are scared now and being intimidated from putting their case. So we can't put those details in the public domain because we want to protect the whistleblowers. But the fact is that there are numerous people now coming forward saying there are severe problems, and those people should be protected. After all, they are trying in many ways to get reform within the organisation rather than demolishing the organisation. They should be protected not only by the FCA but also by the government.
But what are we talking about here in terms of some of the misdemeanors by the financial sector? Just how bad is it?
Well, I mean, some of the scandals we've uncovered are basically fraudulent companies that have been defrauding their customers for an extended period of time, and almost being not even get a slapping on the wrist from the FCA. And I could go through a whole series of these scandals, unfortunately, where people clearly have set out to defraud their clients, and there's been no punishment for them. I mean, I won't go through the details of these because the reality is these are well known now in the sector, and yet the FCA has failed to act on them. And that's the key. I mean, if it was a case that the FCA had acted properly in these scandals, then we could have a position whereby we could be applauding them rather than, I'm afraid, criticising them for their lack of action and indeed their lack of reform from within. And for them to now say that, oh, this is historic. No, these are current problems that consumers have lost their life savings. And that cannot be acceptable.